moms and a whole lot of young folks said, wait a minute, what's going on here doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, Mark, the thing is that, again, we have to remind people, you brought it up, but when we got to Congress, everybody was saying we could never balance the budget. We balanced the budget for the first time in a generation. We balanced it 4 years in a row for the first time in a century. We passed welfare reform. We cut taxes. We actually reformed Medicare, extended its life by 7 years by making some difficult choices. That's what I always thought conservatives did. That's what I always thought the Republican Party stood for. And yet you're running against a Republican president who's given us the biggest deficits ever, certainly in an expansive economy, the biggest federal debt ever, the biggest spending budget ever, a budget that even Rand Paul said a couple of months ago was the biggest boondoggle in the history of the republic. And he's got, because he's a protectionist, because he doesn't believe in free markets, free trade, he's got this $16 billion socialist scheme to pay off the biggest agricultural interests, industrial interests in America. Like, how do you run against a guy like that when 75-80% of Republicans support that? The party has changed, Mark. It's changed.
I would say this. That's the central premise of the campaign. Those thousands of conversations that I had over 25 years, both as 2 terms in the governorship and 12 years in the House of Representatives, the thousands of conversations I had with folks, whether at the small business level where they were trying to make it, or whether you talk to folks around the kitchen counter and they're talking about the struggle they had with finances. I believe that those people have not disappeared. I think that they have been talked to. They haven't been appealed to. But I don't think they've disappeared. Now, if I'm wrong on that, my campaign will be short-lived. But if I'm right, I think that this campaign will have legs.
Mark, so you talk about this campaign being about what it means to be a Republican. Is President Trump a Republican? And the Republican leaders in Congress who refuse to challenge him at times, are they true, legitimate Republicans with conservative ideals? What do you make of what is happening?
I would certainly see the fact that whatever Republican is has gotten a bit murky. It's a long way from where Joe and I started back in the early 90s. And it's a long way again.
Is the president a Republican?
That's for other people to determine. I mean, he's certainly labeled a Republican. I think that a lot of his actions are contrary to conservative philosophy, which I think is what republicanism traditionally was all about.
So, Mark, we hear often about his base, Trump's base.